everybody, and welcome to HCA's Pop Council. We are your Pop Council. Hello, everybody. My name is Wendy Szany. I am, of course, joined today by my co-host, Jami, Philbrick. And, of course, check it out. Our very first guest on the show, we have the one and only Dan Murrell.
Hello.
Hi, Dan.
How's it going?
Hey, Dan.
Good.
I'm happy to be here. It's a great week of stuff. I was looking at everything we're talking about today. It's like, wow, it seems like kind of a dead zone for stuff for a while, but things are actually starting to pick up again.
I'll say, and especially this morning with some pretty big news that dropped. So just to kind of give you guys an insight of what we're talking about today, this show is all about the nerdy stuff, the fandom, everything from Marvel to DC, Star Wars to Disney, and everything in between. And today we're going to talk about, of course, the huge Vanity Fair article that kind of talks about the story behind the Snyder Cut and more. We're going to talk about, of course, our weekly WandaVision recap, spoilers included, and the two trailers that came out just this past week, one for Cruella live action, and of course, get over here, Mortal Kombat. So let's go ahead and get started. I can't even get the story out of my head. I've read it like 1.5 times through because it's a pretty lengthy article on Vanity Fair, and it is a kind of a deep dive, I would say, into the Zack Snyder story and what happened with, his time in making Justice League, and all the way fast forward to today, where we're about to get the Snyder Cut Justice League on HBO Max. What are you guys' thoughts when you read the story?
Well, for me, it just kind of underscores how the Hollywood PR machine works because, we're getting to a point in this story where I was in a position to be covering this when it happened. And I very much remember that the story when this happened was that there was, and this is the truth, the terrible truth, that there was a personal tragedy in Zack Snyder's family, and that Joss Whedon had valiantly stepped up to fill the void and finish the movie that Zack Snyder had started. And, it was a very kind of heroic thing. And now the truth is coming out, which is that the studio had lost complete faith in Zack Snyder, that Whedon was already edging in, was taking over stuff, that they were essentially babysitting him, and that, he didn't come in and finish what Zack Snyder had started. He finished and replaced what Zack Snyder had done, which led us to where we are today. And so my initial thing was like, it's very telling as to the power of publicity and what side of the story people want to come out at any given time. Because I think the truth is still somewhere in the middle.
Absolutely. What about you, Jami? Thoughts on the article?
Yeah, I great article. Really, really good. For us who've been following the story since before it happened, basically, right? As entertainment journalists, I think there was a lot of information in there that other people don't know, that we kind of knew or maybe had sort of heard some hints at. So it wasn't shocking at all to sort of read it and kind of get Zack's side of the story, which, as Dan was saying, obviously different than the sort of peace love marketing, oh yeah, everything worked out great and and sort of all the best presentations that the actors tried to make during the junkets, and even obviously Sad Affleck came out of that, and some of those things. So we knew there was some other stuff kind of underneath there. A few big takeaways about the article for me. One was obviously the fact that Zack decided to take no money to finish the HBO Max cut. And I completely understand why he did that. He even said at one point, I think in the article, he didn't want to be beholden to anyone else. He wanted to be able to make all the decisions if they were going to finish this. I also thought it was interesting that HBO Max wanted to put out his 4-hour, no special effects, no music cut. I mean, that just sounded like a disaster to me. Really good decision on his part not to let that happen. And then I thought it was also interesting the way he describes things going down. It seemed to me that he thought, and this is probably correct, I'd be interested in hearing what Dan thinks, is that he was going to be replaced no matter what. I mean, at some point he was going to be pushed out. He was going to I think he saw the writing on the wall that if he did stay with the project before any tragedies happened in his own personal life, that it was going to be a real uphill battle to get his vision done. And so I think once that tragedy happened, I think, you know, in all fairness, I think Warner Brothers took that as maybe a way of getting what they ultimately wanted, taking advantage of this tragedy. But also, I think once that happened, it was very clear that as a father, he could not, you know, there was one more battle he couldn't, you know, his heart couldn't go through at that point. So as I've said all along, I'm really, really glad, you know, no matter what I ultimately think of the HBO version, I'm really glad as a filmmaker, he gets to finish what he set out to do. And then we can grade that on, you know, do we like it or do we not? But it was really hard to, I think, as a critic, evaluate Justice League because it was Frankenstein. It was so many different movies. I mean, I don't even know what to say about it, really.
I know if you look on Rotten Tomatoes, my poll quote for the movie, I gave it a positive review. It's not a movie I particularly liked, but I remember I gave it a positive review, and the literal pull quote that I pulled for Justice League is, "It's fine, whatever, leave me out of it." Like I was so. That's my
the greatest quote of all time. I promise
you, that is the quote you will find on Rotten Tomatoes. I was so
that's peak pull quote right there.
Not really just completely disengaged.
Leave me out of it.
Leave me out of it. Yeah.
I think that's how a lot of us felt too.
Well, because I think, you know, there's so much, and I would later, you know, there's a lot of stuff when I reviewed Aquaman, but I think particularly as a critic watching that movie, and one of the reasons that I just kind of was so exasperated with it was that I watched it and it was just like, this is so not worthy of anyone getting passionate about it, because it was just obviously such a watered down product, and it's like, why should anyone waste the time to go to battle on either side of this movie? It's obviously a studio Frankenstein, as you said, and so I am very curious to see what Zack Snyder's vision is going to be. The curiosity is my main overwhelming emotion. There's a couple things like, you know, Jesus Joker that came out today that to me are almost like it seems like a parody of what somebody might think would be in the Snyder cut, like the Joker's but that's also marketing. And I'm very curious to see what he has in store. And this is really something that we've never seen before, a director having the chance to go back. I mean, even the Donner cut, the Richard Donner cut of Superman 2 was full of compromises because sadly, by the time they did it, Christopher Reeve wasn't around. You couldn't reshoot anything. It was, you know, you had kind of an assembly of audition footage, etc. It's more of a representation of what this cut would have been if Richard Donner had been able to do it in 1980 or 1984 even. This is a filmmaker that's able to go back and make the movie that he was going to have made. I think that's a very interesting exercise to see what this is going to be.
And the Donner cut is such a good example there, because that's the only, when this was announced, that's the closest thing, and as you said, it's not exactly the same thing, but it's the closest thing to this ever happening that I could think of.
You know, I think it's interesting, Jamie, that you did touch on in the article. They talk about that Zack, by not being paid for this Snyder cut, he is able to gain a lot of creative, control in how this film is going to be put together and shown, especially since in the article they were saying that, oh, just show them the super raw footage without the music, without the special effects. And he's like, well, a hard no. So I'm happy that, you know, that he kind of was like, look, I fought so long and hard for this film. The fans really want it. I'm really going to do what I can to make this the best for the fans who really want to see it. So I super appreciate that. And also the beginning of the article where it talks about he didn't go to the screening, for the execs and everything. He didn't go to that one. And after his wife and Christopher Nolan have seen the film that day, went over to Zack Snyder and said, maybe you shouldn't see this film. So it's interesting that till today, he has not seen this film. Do you think had he seen it, it would affect how he would have put together his 4-hour-long Snyder cut? Or, total theory here, would he have maybe not even made it? What do you guys think?
I think at that time, the movie was probably such an intersection of things for him. Mm-hmm. Personal tragedy, artistic disappointment. I think that's probably a good idea. I think he knows what he would have made because he made most of it already. Correct. I'd say that's probably, I think he got some good guidance there, because what good could have come from him watching that version of the movie? There's nothing I don't think he could have gotten out of that. And I think that he is I mean, part of the reason that people hired him, and then I think part of the reason why Warner Brothers lost faith in him was that he is very dedicated to his vision, and that's what that's just what it is, and it's what it's gonna be. And I think that that's one of his biggest assets, and also obviously with what happened with Warner Brothers, to them, one of his biggest liabilities, in the sense that they felt like they couldn't commit to that vision anymore. So I don't think it would have affected anything. And I think that he had some people that loved him and also worked with him professionally that knew what advice to give him, because I think that was probably the right one.
Agree with that. We also have a couple of comments in our chat here. One from Brandy Parker, who writes, I am more interested in the making of the Snyder Cut movie than the movie itself. Especially after reading this article, I would love to see sort of a documentary we're making of. If they decide to put out a sort of a DVD, with that commentary or bonus feature, then I would definitely be interested in seeing that. And also another comment from Tari, who writes, really insightful and kind of heartbreaking article about Snyder. Really don't like how the media misrepresented Snyder all these years. It was certainly a heartbreaking article, especially in the parts where he spoke of, the losing of his daughter, and how much that affected his work, where he would perhaps view his work as sort of not a distraction, but something to kind of take a little bit of that pain away. But then working on the movie, he had people that were on set every day where they were positioned to kind of be viewed as babysitters for him. And there was a lot of the pressure of what the studio wanted versus his vision of what to put in the movie. And I think that, ultimately resulted in, obviously now we know the decision of him leaving the film and where Joss Whedon entered in all of that. So really interesting article. I recommend you guys go ahead and give it a read. It's over at Vanity Fair, so you can kind of get the full scope of the thing ahead of the film. What do you guys think of the new, we talked about this just a little bit, the new images for the Snyder Cut? We got 4 new images. We've got a Batman Nightmare, looks like Nightmare Batman. We got the Jesus Joker, as one of you guys said. We have a Mera and Cyborg in his mocap suit.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be curious to see what Dan thinks, but after reading that article and seeing those images, I'm now wondering if all those images aren't nightmare shots, and if Mera, we know that Amber Heard did reshoots, and I was always wondering, like, why would she reshoot? Because we know, her scene with Aquaman is in the theatrical cut. So now I'm starting to wonder, is Mera in the nightmare sequence? If she's still alive at that point and Aquaman's gone, because we saw that shot where the his broken, whatever it's called, you know what I'm talking about, pitchfork. So what do you think about that theory? Could Mera be in the end? Because she would be a good person for Batman to recruit if she's still alive during the nightmare to fight Darkseid and Superman.
I mean, I think it makes sense when you put the puzzle pieces together, which is, we've gotten sources saying, well, we didn't reshoot as much as people say that we reshot. And also the fact that, what we've seen of that Joker scene, it does very clearly appear to be, and the next, I think he's even said that it is the nightmare sequence. So I think that's fairly likely, because I could see that being the one part of the movie that he wanted to beef up a little bit.
Yeah,
and obviously this is where a lot of the work is gone. So I don't think that's such a bad supposition. I think that's probably pretty likely.
Yeah. And also, I just want to say on that last thing we were talking about, the sequence where in real life where Deborah and Christopher Nolan decide not to let Zach see the movie. As our commenter said, that's the movie I want to see, right? Don't you want to see that scene in a movie, like a behind-the-scenes movie about the making of this, where Deborah and Christopher Nolan, like, we can't ever let Zach see this. Like, that's a really dramatic. I know they're going to make the making of The Godfather as a film with Oscar Isaac and Jake Gyllenhaal. I'd love to see that sort of theatrical, fictional version of that at some point.
Yeah. I mean, I can't wait. Like, my curiosity, it has been heightened since reading this article as well, just to kind of gain more insight. And it's not me trying to get gossip or anything like that. I've always been kind of curious as to sort of, are we ever going to get a peek behind the curtains of like what happened? Because it's, a lot of like, well, this reports this reports that. And, a lot of it, you want to respect the privacy of of Zack Snyder and his family, especially after the loss of his daughter. So like for me as a person, it's like I don't want to dig in too much into that. So this article really let us, I would say, got a peek behind curtains for this. So really looking forward to it personally, to seeing the 4-hour Snyder cut. And speaking of the Snyder cut, we also have other DC news. So we all know that the Flash movie is coming, and now we have a new Supergirl. We have Sasha Cayley from The Young and the Restless. She has now scored the feature role of the new Supergirl, and she will make her debut in the Flash film. And the Flash is being directed by Andy Muschietti. So I am actually surprised to hear about this. I didn't realize that they were planning to have Supergirl as a part of the movie. What's your takeaway on the casting and having Supergirl in the film?
I'm the same way. I mean, there are people, I find this with WandaVision as well, which we'll talk about in a minute. But, you know, especially since I don't cover as much news anymore, like day-to-day news, I try to kind of preserve some of the surprise on things, so I don't follow these things step by step. So it may have been known out there that Supergirl was going to be in this movie. I didn't know that. So when I heard they cast a new Supergirl, I'm like, oh, okay. I had no idea. I'm also not familiar with this actress. I loved the video that they put out where Andy Muschietti revealed to her that she'd been cast, and I think that that's a great moment. You know, maybe one of those moments that Zoom gives us now. One of the little silver linings is you get things like that. But yeah, I mean, it's having not really been familiar with her work and not really knowing in what context. I mean, this sounds like a crazy movie. We've got Michael Keaton, and now we've got Supergirl, and all kinds of weird stuff. I'm just very curious about what this movie's going to be, and you certainly seem to have found an actress who is very excited to play that part, as you could tell from that video they put out.
It's really cute. The video warmed my heart, and you gotta always be happy for the actress who lands a job like this one. She's I hope to see her in many, many other things after this. And it also makes me wonder kind of the insertion of having Supergirl in this one and thinking about how the Flash movie, if they're going to explore Flashpoint paradox and timelines and things like that, will we maybe see, now that Supergirl's been kind of name dropped, would we possibly see Melissa Benoist's version of Supergirl in this? What do you think, Jami?
It's possible. I don't know. I mean, that show is ending this year, so I got to imagine she'd be available because she's not shooting the show. So if they want to do some kind of crossover like that, obviously it's in the cards with two Batmans. We know we're dealing with the multiverse, so it is in the cards. It'll be interesting to see if she's the cousin of Henry Cavill's Superman or the cousin of some other Superman from some other universe. We don't know. I will say that I was very surprised to hear that she was being added to Flash, because it does seem pretty heavy already with, two Batmans. And it's a Flash movie, let's remember. But I'm also wondering if she is sort of replacing the role that Cyborg would have played, because we know that he was originally going to be sort of Flash's buddy, his sidekick in it. He even name checks Vic in the Crisis episode of the DC CW shows. So when Ezra did that crossover, so that will be interesting to see. I did know that the DC EU, or I don't know if it's just being called the DC Universe now, but I do know that they were looking to cast a Supergirl. I mean, I'd heard rumors about that. Casting a Supergirl for Flash was totally news to me. So I think it'll be cool. It'll be interesting to see what, kind of role she takes in the film, how large it is, if it's more just sort of an introduction for other presentations of her in the future. I also don't know the actress's work. She seems lovely from the video, and I thought that was really great the way they did that. She's a soap opera actress, and I don't watch a lot of soap operas, so I don't know her work from there. But I will say she's from Boston. I'm from Boston, so anytime Beantowner gets a big opportunity like this, I'm completely behind it. So good ups for Boston.
Yeah, I think this also, and this is all speculation here, but also opens up the possibility of us maybe now we are seeing like a Supergirl feature film being born, with this casting choice, because
I think that's definitely a possibility.
Yeah, because I don't want to see them cast, her and then have her appear in the Flash movie, and then later on they decide to do a Supergirl and then they recast. It's like, well, what about her? I guess they can always spin it where it's a different Earth or different timeline and the paradox and this and that. But that is going to be interesting. And I like that you brought up about the crossover on the CW, which is what made me think like, oh, I mean, if we can have both Flash in a TV show, we can certainly have both Supergirls in a Flash movie. Why not? Put Grant Gustin back into the movie as well, because they can run it next to each other.
Now, do you think she'll go blonde to play Kara, or will they decide to go with, because she's naturally a brunette, it seems, or at least her hair is darker now.
I hope not. I hope that, and I think people, I think I hope that she keeps her natural appearance, because I think that perhaps there was a belief a few years ago that audiences wouldn't understand what a multiverse is or would be confused by it. And the movie that I always kind of point to that I was sort of skeptical of was Into the Spider-Verse. I remember when Into the Spider-Verse came out, I'm like, are people going to understand that, two different Spider-Man, you have Tom Holland in it, but I mean, no one cared, and people immediately got it. And I think that movie deserves a lot of credit for really kind of explaining in a very understandable way to a lot of people what a multiverse is. And I think some people might have taken that understanding forward to other movies. Mm-hmm. So I think at this point, you could have multiple versions of one character that look completely different, and audiences aren't going to be like, well, why isn't she blonde? Because they understand that it's because this is just a thing. Like, you can have a comic book universe with the same character that looks completely different, because it's just, you can just throw multiverse at it. And that's just the way that it works. So,
and if she is Henry Cavill's cousin, I think the way she looks now matches him better.
Yeah.
I mean, I think she looks great. So just in the picture that's kind of circulating and all over the internet, she's gorgeous. She's got a killer jawline. I can't stop looking at her jawline. It is gorgeous. So yeah.
And how sweet of Melissa Benoist to accept her in and welcome her.
Sweetest.
So yeah, I thought that was really good.
Feeling the love all around from all the Supergirls, and I look forward to seeing definitely one Supergirl, but maybe two in the Flash film. And of course we will know about that as we get closer to the release of that movie. And let's go ahead and move on to our next topic. Let's talk spoiler for WandaVision. So just a quick disclaimer here. Since we're going to be talking spoilers, viewers, if you have not caught up with the latest episode of WandaVision, you might want to put us on mute for the next few minutes as we dive into it. Unless you don't care about spoilers, then by all means, hang in with us. So with that said, we have just witnessed episode 7 of WandaVision. This one is appropriately called Breaking the Fourth Wall. It's taking on a bit of that Modern Family sort of an approach with Wanda, talking to the camera on the couch. A lot of the stuff kind of mirrored the Modern Family aesthetic, if you will. Really, I have been personally enjoying all the episodes, because I feel like with every episode, I am ending every episode with a little bit more questions that I feel have answered. But that's okay. We have 2 more episodes to go. But we did get some pretty big reveals in this one. One, Agnes's true identity, which I think we all kind of knew from the beginning. I feel like most people have thought well, it probably is, especially after the Halloween episode. They put Agnes in a witch costume, but it's like she finally kind of came clean, you didn't think you were the only magical girl in the town, did you? And of course, Monica Rambeau breaking in to the Hex for a third. She went through the border for a third time. What were some of your favorite moments and reveals from the show?
Well, and I've said this in my reviews too. I got into a little bit of hot water with some people because I did not know who the comic book character Wiccan was, and I was talking about the Billy's costume, and I was like, "That looks like Doctor Strange." Woo!
Oh no! Whoopsie.
Yeah,
that's okay.
But that's that's okay. But my main point being that I don't come at the show from a very deep wealth of comic book knowledge. I know a lot about some comic books. I just don't know very much about the ones that this show is nominal. The ones that this show is at least drawing its inspiration from. So the name Agatha Harkness is something that I remember back when I was still working at Screen Junkies, when the trailers for this came out, and people were seeing Catherine Hahn. I remember people saying the name Agatha Harkness, but that was a deeper cut Marvel character that I had no association with. So when I heard people say that, or saw them say "Oh, I think she's Agatha Harkness," I didn't know what that meant. So, and that's something. But Catherine Hahn, by the way, she's a national treasure. We all
Lovely.
knew this, but I'm enjoying the show, basically not knowing where a lot of this is coming from. If this were like, if you were adapting Reign of the Supermen, then I could be like, that's not, that's Hank Henshaw. Yeah, that stuff I know, but this stuff I've kind of enjoyed letting it kind of take me where it will. So I thought it was, I agreed. I knew that you don't just cast Catherine Hahn as just another resident. So I knew that something was going on with her. They threw me a couple of false leads, though. The scene with Vision in the car on the Halloween episode. I'm like, what is she? I don't know. Maybe she's not. But I like where it's going. And I'm really looking forward to seeing her completely unleashed in the next couple of episodes, because she's been so great tactically so far where they've used her. And I look forward to her being just completely 100% evil, or whatever they have in store for her, because I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
What about you, Jami?
Yeah, that's such a good point that Dan made. I think that they did a good job of the fact that, like, we all knew it was going to be Agatha Harkness, or that she was something, that Catherine Hahn was something. Like, it's something like we all kind of have known about for a while. But the story did it in such a way that, I know, Wendy, you and I for the last couple of weeks have been just, there was enough in there for us to discuss, is she Agatha Harkness or is she not Agatha Harkness? And certainly that scene Vision made me start to think, oh, is maybe something else going on here? So I thought it was a nice reveal that worked, even though we kind of sort of knew what was going on anyways.
Yeah, I agree. And it's nice to kind of have that confirmation, because even though everybody from the beginning, even if you knew, like, if you wanted to put Agatha Harkness's name and you smush them together and you make it Agnes, even if you knew, say, from the get-go, and that's how you really felt, like, we don't know until the show gives us that actual confirmed answer. So it's nice that, like, finally in episode 7 we get, like, the confirmation. I was like, well, we have 2 more episodes to go, and I have so many questions.
And how great was the end? Was the end song, the end credits?
I don't want a helmet to get copywritten, but yeah, like,
they hadn't done that. You're right, copyright. They hadn't done that yet, where we sort of saw 2 sitcom, intros. One at the beginning, one at the end, and one that, I believe that was probably a Munsters Addams Family kind of inspired thing. And so that doesn't go in the, they've been progressing with their years of sitcoms. So sort of retroly go back, I thought was an interesting move as well. And I have to just say, quoting one of my favorite superhero movies of all time, Deadpool, with Monica, superhero landing.
I said the same thing. I said that. I was like, oh, that's hard on the knees. But yeah,
shouting in my house at midnight.
Speaking of Monica, we did see her pushing herself through, the border of the hex for a 3rd time, almost kind of looking like she was about to be pulled apart. We saw various images of Monica as she wills and pushes herself forward. And we already knew that her cells and molecules and everything was kind of changing because of what Darcy said. And of course, the report of the x-ray coming out, and it was all, kind of wiped clean and everything like that. And I also love taking a look at the photo that we have up, her, the suit that she was wearing underneath that spacesuit, kind of a little bit of resembling I don't know if she's going to be Photon or she's going to be Spectrum, but it resembles that costume. And I love that we got just kind of a little bit of a glimpse into her powers, where she isn't quite sure exactly what's happening to her. By the same token, she's not a stranger to superheroes. Obviously, she works at SWORD. She's friends with Carol Danvers. She's met Nick Fury. She's met Skrulls. Her mom is Maria Rambeau. So, I'm sure in her head is a bit racing, but there's also other issues that are bigger that are happening. And so I look forward to how we can sort of explore her power a little bit more in the show, but I feel like we're going to get really more of, this is like a setup for Captain Marvel too, as far as Monica's story goes. But we do see her, by the way, mid-credit scene, first time ever that this show's ever done. I honestly kind of, when I saw this, I was like, oh no. Did I miss any other ones? Should I be now going back to the past 6 episodes? Right. But I think the internet would have told me.
It's safe to watch. I think it's safe to turn it off once they tell you to watch Age of Ultron. I always felt that way about Mandalorian too. Is I'm going to watch the credits until it shows me Taika Waititi, and then it's safe for me to turn it off. Yeah, no, I would generally watch them till the end for that exact reason. But I with Monica Rambeau, I think again, I'd heard this name Photon, but I still don't really. And that's the other thing is like I don't have any interest in looking it up because I want to find out on the show for myself. This is something I'm enjoying on its own terms. But what I really do like is that they're setting up this what seems like some kind of a conflict because. The very couple times that Captain Marvel or Carol Danvers has been mentioned, she does not seem overly fond of her. And I think by adding in this thing with her mom having died, you wonder, does she in some way blame Carol for what happened? We don't know. We know that from all of these flashbacks that she was having, she was going through the barrier that it sounded like, obviously her mom and Captain Marvel were close, but does she blame her in some way for what happened to her? Some exposure to something? Is it just that Carol left and essentially left her mom and left her alone, and she feels like she could have been of some sort of a help? Like, I like that you're actually setting up some kind of a conflict instead of bringing up Captain Marvel and she's just like, I love Carol Danvers. It's like, well, that doesn't really leave you anywhere interesting. So I think they're doing a good job at seeding some real conflict in the backstory between these two characters that you can then explore later on down the road. Yeah,
I agree. And I hope that they don't turn it into just like Monica's superpower origin story, because this is, still a WandaVision show, but I like that they kind of use it as a way to introduce us to this and the storyline of what we are probably going to see in Captain Marvel 2. But what happens in this mid-credit scene is that she didn't get kicked out of the Hex this time. So she was like, well, I'm going to have a looky look, goes over to Agnes's house and appropriately finds the entrance to the basement where all the roots and vines and sparks of purple were showing up. And this, I did not expect that Pietro kind of popped back in with his, could be Snoopers going Snoop. I was like, oh, wait, he's still in this. So it wasn't just a one episode thing for Evan Peters, which is great because I love his version of Quicksilver. So do you think that, one, we will get to see more of Pietro in the next episode? Probably yes, I think. And two, now that we kind of know that Agatha has been Agatha all along, and we saw, kind of a look back at that scene when Pietro showed up, there was some purple spark on his back. So my question is to you guys, do we think this is actual Pietro from, even though it is the Fox's X-Men, or do we think this is just kind of like a weird illusion image that she has conjured up?
I think the jury's still out on that. I think it could go either way. I think that we now know for sure that he's not some new representation of the Eric Johnson character, right? So he's definitely either the Evan Peters we knew from the X-Men movies, or he's some sort of new conjuring of Agatha's. I'm leaning more towards that she probably brought him from the multiverse, but it is entirely possible that it's just a recast actor for this series, and it's her magic causing it. And then there is a third option that the internet loves, which is it's Mephisto or it's somebody else. It's another guy. I don't know. I do think that there is a possibility there's a big bad pulling Agatha's strings. Maybe not. I we don't know yet. I do think if she is the big bad, it's a little, to reveal her on this at the end of the 7th episode, but maybe. I think it very likely is one of those two answers, but I'm probably leaning towards she grabbed him from the multiverse, especially since we know that the next, Doctor Strange will have Wanda. That's a multiverse movie. Spider-Man's multiverse. So that seems like a good guess, but it could also be a red herring for just being pure magic. Yeah. I can go either way.
I think that would be a very odd choice for me, because many of my people that watch my reviews and leave comments and stuff, and I love reading a lot of what their theories are, but a lot of people think that this Pietro, that Evan Peters is not in any way connected to Quicksilver, that he's that it's kind of a nod or an inside joke or whatever. I mean, if you've set up that your next Doctor Strange movie is the multiverse of madness, and you're opening the door to this, and then all of the official casting reports from the Spider-Man film, as far as who's coming back with that, and that we've got villains from previous films and maybe Spider-Man, I don't know, from previous movies coming back, excuse me, for this to be a red herring would be a bit of an odd choice for me, because I think it gets fans excited. If you get people excited about this idea of a Quicksilver in the multiverse, and then you kind of go through, so like, oh, well, no. He's not from this was just kind of a clever, I think then that could have a detrimental effect on your fan base, where in the future, if you do things like that, you're kind of saying, it's like the Walking Dead thing with the dumpster.
Right.
When
The
they
dumpster.
killed Glenn, but it turns out he was just under a dumpster.
Yes.
For me, as a fan of the show, I began to disengage from the show because I said, well, then I can't trust what you tell me anymore.
Correct.
That's
I can't
such a
trust
good
that you're
call.
not
That's a
manipulating
good
me
reference.
anymore. So
Yeah.
I think if Marvel were to do this and be like, oh no, he wasn't supposed to be Quicksilver from Fox. Why would you think that? I think
It would be pulling the wool. Yeah, be pulling the wool out from the fans.
The internet's like, why did you do this?
Yeah, and Marvel is not one to upset the fan base if they can help it. So I think you're onto something there, Dan.
I feel like Marvel's got everything planned out, and they're probably just watching our reaction going, you have no idea. And we don't have any idea.
It's true.
At all. But I am always happy to see more of Evan Peters in this, just because, I enjoy him. And also, another thing I really noticed with this episode is that we also have now Darcy inside the Hex. So she kind of caught up, with Vision and caught him up on exactly what happened, because in a previous episode, he did say to Wanda, I don't know who I was before this. I don't remember my life. And that was almost heartbreaking to hear that it scares him, and he struggled with that. And in this one, he gets a bit of answers on his own. And then for the first time ever in the show, that the two of them aren't together in scenes. They're certainly very far apart in this one, physically, distance-wise. So it's interesting to kind of think about, was it Wanda that was preventing him coming home and setting those like roadblocks, literal roadblocks, or was that more of Agatha so she could get Wanda alone, or let Wanda have her little staycation, babysit the twins? And this is all part of Agatha's bigger plan. And I also props to Elizabeth Olsen, what she's been doing every episode, taking on the persona of each era that we explore, all the way from like the 50s, 60s, all the way to the Modern Family take. I just loving seeing her skills and her flexibility as an actress to take on these various personas. And I think she's handling them flawlessly. But this might be my favorite one, with her kind of waking up, day after Halloween. She's like, I am just so tired. You pull back her hex covered bedspread there, and she's still in like half her Wanda Halloween costume, which I thought was a nice little touch. But yeah, interesting to see also, now that the Hex has really expanded, does that affect how much control Wanda has now on her, perfect world, her little bubble, or is there greater power, helping her along, pushing that? I mean, I like to think that expanding the Hex is all Wanda. It's just another glimpse into how powerful she really is. Yeah,
and to loop back on Elizabeth Olsen, I think she's just been outstanding in this. Paul Bettany as well. And Catherine Hahn. I mean, there's really not a bum performance, but really Elizabeth Olsen, because there's so much to this that I'm sure it's going to have to stand up to scrutiny on repeat viewings as we learn more and more. We already know that with Catherine Hahn's character, I'm sure, and then going back as we find out more about Wanda. But I've always felt like she did pretty well with the 5 minutes of movie that she was given for the 4 or 5 movies that she was in. I loved that moment she had with Thanos at the end of the Endgame, where she basically said, you took everything from me. Like, that was such a great moment. And it was just like, I wish we could have had more time with this character to understand. And I think that this show in a lot of ways is going to make that moment better, because you understand the full depth of her pain and her loss and her grieving process. I just really think, if there were an MVP award, it is called WandaVision, and Paul Bettany's been great, but Elizabeth Olsen has just been so good, and having to give a different kind of performance in every single episode, and from the 60s to the 50s, 60s kind of housewife role to the 80s, and now she's sort of herself, and she's been really, really good.
I completely agree. Elizabeth Olsen is killing it. I mean, the fact that she's able to essentially play this character that we know, but then play a different character every episode within that character, I thought it's really, really impressive. And Paul Bettany as well. And I have to say, I'm not a huge what's the show? The Modern Family. I almost said Family Matters. That's Urkel, so that would be showing my age. Modern Family. I'm not a big Modern Family fan. Maybe I've seen half an episode once, but I thought Darcy and Paul Bettany, I thought the two of them together in the sort of, I mean, it was hilarious in that sort of Modern Family-esque situation. I thought they were really great together. So I really I enjoyed this episode more than I thought I would for the genre that it's replicating.
I agree. And I also love that they started to sort of explore that breaking the fourth wall thing. We've seen it done in Deadpool. We saw it a little bit in the Halloween episode as well, but they like full-fledged on this one, along with, you know, the director chair interview type of a deal. Love it all. And we have a comment from Swing Kid 1981 here that says, it's interesting that every time Wanda says previously on WandaVision, each episode she says it more and more tired / less energetic. I actually had not noticed that. So that's actually a great
I had not noticed that either.
That.
Now I gotta go back and watch the beginnings of every episode.
Yeah,
and see
go
that.
from episode 2 and see. And she's like, you know, like previously on WandaVision. And now she's like, previously on WandaVision.
I wouldn't put it past them doing that purposely.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
What I like about the show is everything in the show has been really thought out, and it makes me go back and do a rewatch. And instead of paying attention to what's in the foreground or what they want you to see, I'm trying to like look at, I don't know, refrigerator magnets and be like, okay, what do they show us here? What, like, that's probably too much of a deep dive, but I do that to myself because I want to look for, I don't know, more clues, because speculating with this show is super fun. I'm probably wrong on all accounts, and I'm okay with being wrong because it's not my story. I'm just kind of along for the ride, but it is a lot of fun to sort of speculate and kind of get on the internet, be like, well, I think this. I
think with Marvel, nothing is done by accident. So if you see something in the background that you think means something, probably does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like, for example, since we're talking about what's on the back, and this wasn't even really on the background, they prominently showed, I don't know if you want to call it a fly or a cicada. I've actually heard both. Right. So the theory of Mephisto being a part of this and having kind of that fly / we'll call it an insect on the curtain there. A lot of people are saying like he's shown up before in that form, so maybe it's him. It's possible, but we have 2 episodes left, and they're going to be, and we don't know this because I don't have confirmation of any of this, the runtime of the next 2 episodes, if they're going to be longer, if they're going to go with the standard 30 minutes, 37 minutes with, you know, the credits, like that's just 1 hour left of the entire show. And if that is the case, I just don't want them to get to the end and like, okay, we have to hurry up and rush and shoehorn in all the end stuff to make, I don't think they're going to do that, but that is kind of a little bit of like a worry I have in the back of my mind.
Well, you said something about the bug, and I just want to bring this up because it did kind of confuse me. The sons are missing, the boys are missing. We see a shot of the rabbit, and then we see a shot of the bug. And instantly I thought, oh, did Agatha turn them into the rabbit and the bug? But since we saw the kid with the rabbit in his lap before, then it makes me think that the rabbit wasn't there. But I didn't know what that meant, the shots of her looking at them, if they were trying to indicate that they've become them or they're just disappeared. I mean, I guess we'll find out. But was anyone else confused by that regarding the boys missing?
I know. I'm a big old dummy. I just thought it was just like, oh, that's supposed to be creepy. That
okay,
yeah.
I'm sure. Listen, I'm sure that there's a reason that the fly was there, whatever the bug was there.
Right.
But
yeah.
Generally, when I'm watching, again, like I said, it's. I love that this is a show that can be watched in many different ways, and I love, when you look at how many people are being successful right now doing videos where they do things like they analyze every frame of the thing. And I think it's great that there's so many resources out there for fans that watch the show that way. I think it really is a testament to the fact that you can watch it that way, but you can watch it like me, which is like I watch the shows and I pick up on little things like the aerospace engineer and all that stuff that I'm like, that seemed very obvious. But then a lot of times I'll just kind of let something exist as it is. And then if they go back later and like, oh, this is really this, and like, oh, wow, that's cool. Like I try not to over analyze things too terribly much, because I feel like it's kind of like shaking the Christmas presents. If I shake the box too hard, I'm going to find out what's in it. And then it's not going to be as much fun when I open it. So yeah, I generally tend to, I love to speculate on things like the aerospace engineer, which I don't think there was any way to figure out at the time, and I still am not entirely sure that they've done the full reveal on that.
Mhm.
But things like the Fly and stuff, I come from the school of I just kind of like to leave it be, and then if the show goes back and explains that, that's just going to be another little surprise for me down the road.
Yeah, you get that.
Well,
nice
I was just
reveal.
worried for the boys. I'm worried for the boys. That's all. I was worried. I was like, where are the boys? Are the boys okay?
Yeah. I mean, they better be, because if not, that's going to really send Wanda on an even more downward spiral. Like, she's lost Vision. She's almost lost them again. These are the boys that she would, protect at all costs. So that's that. If let's just say the boys never appear again or don't appear for a full the next episode, like, Wanda's gonna lose it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll see.
Be exactly the point.
Exactly. So that could be it. And of course, we look forward to the next episode, and we will be back next Monday to talk more WandaVision and theories, of course. And we have a little bit of time left on today's show, so I wanted to talk about the 2 trailers that were dropped last week. One being Disney's live action Cruella, and the other one being Mortal Kombat. So with Disney's Cruella, we have Emma Stone playing the titular, I want to say hero. I guess she's more of the villain, but sort of. I really like the aesthetic of this whole Cruella thing. It's a lot of the black and white, high fashion. So when I think Cruella de Vil, I do think high fashion. And it's interesting that they're kind of giving us, in this sort of a way, a look at how she becomes Cruella, because she doesn't start off being Cruella. She is Estella. Really interesting thought on that. And we also have Emma Thompson in this film. So I was kind of going into worrying about how maybe they would let us kind of, I don't know, sympathize with the villain and be like, oh, they were just misunderstood. And I never really liked that about like any origin story, period. I just feel like a villain's bad, let them be bad. This hero or this person is mysterious and legendary, like, let them be legendary. Like, I don't need to know all the little details. But after seeing this trailer, I don't know, I'm kind of sold. I'm into it, like really into it, actually.
I don't know. I one of my biggest disappointments with Maleficent, and then the sequel, was that when Angelina Jolie was playing the Maleficent that we know, I thought she was brilliant. And even in the sequel, when she and Michelle Pfeiffer were just sort of like, feuding for the beginning of the thing, like, I'm like, okay, this kind of deliciously evil thing, I got less and less interested the more the movie turned into. But here's why she's misunderstood and was really the good guy all along. I don't want that. I don't want to know why Maleficent is the good guy or was misunderstood.
Correct.
She was brilliant as a villain. We'll leave her a villain. So I don't want to sympathize with Cruella de Vil. Right. And I hope they don't take that. I hope they don't take that turn, because she's evil. That's like real world evil. That's about as evil as you can get. Like, I'm not talking like Ursula Sea Witch evil. Like, I'm talking like corporeal mortal evil. That's about as bad as you can go. Like, I don't want to know why I should really like her, because I don't. So I hope that's not the direction. But there's also a thing, like, I just sort of have I'm kind of with you, Wendy, and I'm not as far down the line of the idea of like, let's find out the mystery behind why this. I don't care. I really don't. Particularly, with a character like Emma Stone, looks like she's having a great time. Yeah, and she's a wonderful actor, and I'm sure she's probably going to give a great performance. But as far as the story goes, like, I've never sat awake in bed at night and been wondering the mysteries of the universe and been thinking like, I wonder why Cruella de Vil was so evil. It's just never been a particularly enjoyable thing. But my one thing that I always say about movies like this is I love it when they prove me wrong. I love it when I'm skeptical about a movie and I go in and the Lego movie was one of them. I thought it was like, this is commercialism is at its worst. And I went and saw it and I was like, I loved it. So I hope that they surprise me. Yeah, absolutely. I do feel that for some reason, and this is me crossing my fingers because I, like you, Dan, had really high hopes for Maleficent, and I still enjoy like the overall aesthetic of it. There's a lot of parts of it with Angelina Jolie's performance that I loved, but then there are other parts where, especially where this like just found motherly love for Aurora. I was like, well, no, you hate her, you cursed her. Yeah. There's a whole reason why you did this. So I hope that they don't particularly take that route with Cruella. But what it looks to me is that there's this other fashion icon, this kind of famous
fashion designer played by Emma Thompson. I think she kind of is the catalyst of why there was that turn for her. And also it was reiterated in the trailer that, you know, she was like, I was born bad. I was like, well, maybe she was just like, you know, what do you think about that, Jami? That maybe she was just born bad.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that I agree with Dan a lot. This is not a movie that I was interested in, didn't really pique my interest. So I kind of don't care. But then I saw the trailer and I really like what they're doing with it. I think I heard someone compare it to Joker, to being sort of the Joker of the Disney films. That's, now you piqued my interest, right? Now I'm interested. Like, is this going to be a little bit more of a serious, dramatic movie? I think it can only be so, you know, it's not going to be hard R. So it can only be so,
well, no.
They can only push that envelope so far with Disney. Yeah, I mean, that would be super interesting. But obviously that's not going to happen. So I think that, you know, I think it's a good casting of a good actress. And a character like that reminds me of maybe Joaquin and Joker, or Tom Hardy and Venom, right? It's an interesting actress to pair with that IP. So I'm interested in what they can do, and I think the trailer looked interesting. And I think you're right; they could do that sort of like, you know, Emma Thompson was the real Cruella, and then she kind of becomes the new Cruella sort of thing. You know, she grooms her. But I hope it doesn't become, like you were saying, Dan, like a Maleficent. I feel like sometimes, you know, Hollywood will cast a big actor like that in a, you know, a scary role or an evil role, and not want them to be too evil because it is Angelina Jolie. And so I feel like they kind of, you know, hedge their bets a little bit with that. And I hope they don't do that with this. I hope they let Emma really be as evil as she wants to be.
Yeah. And we only have to wait until, I think this comes out in May. So, and we'll see, because right now, I don't think there's any talk of putting it on Disney Plus, and this is intended for a theatrical release from the looks of it. So we will see if we can get our butts back in theater seats by May. I really miss the movie theater a lot. Like, it's been over a year since I've been into a movie theater, so I miss it quite a lot. Another movie that I would love to see on the big screen, of course, Mortal Kombat. You guys, I was not ready for this trailer. I was not ready for how much I was going to like it. I love the fact that right off the bat, they said, you know what, you want more to come back? You got more to come back. And also, we're going to make it a red band trailer. What were you guys' takeaway from the Mortal Kombat trailer?
So I will say that I was disappointed with the non red band trailer.
Okay.
So that's what I saw. That's what I saw first, and I did not like it at all. Then I searched out the red band trailer, saw that, and that's much better and much more of what, you know, I think we want. I actually was fortunate enough to do a set visit to this film in Australia last November of 2019. So I got to see sort of what they were doing. And as you both know, you've been on lots of set visits, it's very difficult to tell if a movie is going to be any good from the set visit. You can kind of get an idea of the tone and sort of what they're going for. But I mean, I've been on so many set visits where I'm like, this movie is going to be awesome, and then it wasn't. Or this movie is going to be terrible, and then it was awesome. So there's no way to really gauge it. But I can say from even the red band trailer, I think a lot of the things they were going for, or that were explained to me on the set that they were going for, I didn't see in the trailer. And so I hope that they're still going to be in the movie, and that maybe they're just saving some of those things, some of the surprises. But I think we did get a good feel of the characters and the representation of those characters that we know from the games. So, you know, I'm excited for it, but a little hesitant, and you know, want to reserve my opinions until I see the final film. But I was a little disappointed by the initial trailer.
Dan?
I've never actually done a set visit. We sent Joe Starr to the set of New Mutants.
I was really surprised when he said that. I was like, wait, what now?
Yeah, I was too, Dan.
I don't know. We sent Joe Starr to the set of New Mutants, and I want to say 2009. And I think that might still be under embargo. I think that might still be under embargo. I'm not sure.
That's it.
But yeah. So, but I will say, this is one thing where I sort of sit back and watch other people enjoy it, because we had a very strict no Mortal Kombat rule in my house growing up. I was too violent. I was not. That was one of the, as I call them, groundable offenses if I were found to have been playing Mortal Kombat. And I was never a big fighting games fan in general. Like, I played Street Fighter. I was never the biggest Street Fighter fan. I kind of preferred other types of games. So I don't come at it from any sort of nostalgic thing, or like, oh, I can't wait to see this character or that character. I'm aware of who the characters are. You kind of have to be growing up in the 90s. You know, I know Sub-Zero and Scorpion. Yeah, I mean, I know who they are, but I don't have a huge attachment to it. In general, I think that I'm kind of amused the more kind of, there's not a lot to pull from. The source material, as it were, is two digital avatars facing each other and fighting. I've always found it very amusing that the less that you have to go on, the more seriously a movie takes it. I'm amused by that, because they're imbuing such weight and gravity and importance to this very simple thing. I suspect and I hope that there's more in the movie in the realm of like taking someone's blood and turning it into a knife. I think that's what the fans really are there for. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know. I think more Mortal Kombat fans and general audience members would be much more pleased with a movie that does these kinds of things with the R rating that they've wanted from a Mortal Kombat movie. And I think the response will probably be less to a movie that is about like the lore, with the deep lore and the let's take this very seriously and build a mythology. I don't know how many people. I think that you would be much more served to have a lot more fun with the movie and do these kinds of off the wall things than spend 60 minutes of a 90-minute movie about like, you know, story and world building. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that you're going to be much more successful with a movie that just says, let's just figure out like a logical way to have these characters fight each other and just have a lot of fun. That's why I'm in the minority, but that's why I've always been a fan of Freddy versus Jason, which is that the movie didn't take very long to sort of set up what the story is. They do it in the first 5 minutes. Freddy just like says like, Jason, go kill people so I can get back into the real world. And then you just immediately get into like the carnage of it all. I think that, and I hope that that's more of the approach that Mortal Kombat is taking, instead of like, we're going to take 50 minutes to get to the first fight because we've got to build a universe here. Like, I don't think you do.
Sorry, Wendy. I was just going to add to Dan that unfortunately, from what we were told on the set, it is world building. It is mythology building. They do want to make it the MCU for Mortal Kombat. So unfortunately,
maybe more than one film then?
I mean, I think that was certainly the goal. Yeah, to start a franchise and build it out in a very serious way. So sort of some of your biggest fears are kind of what I think I heard on set.
Interesting. Oh, interesting. Huh. Okay. I mean, I guess they would have to establish for the general audience who may not like be like, you know, looking at it from as familiar as all the fans who grew up with Mortal Kombat, right? There's got to be some people, newer audience, that's kind of like, oh, I kind of know of Mortal Kombat and I know it's a video game, so that's what this is. So they may not know what Outworld is, and they may not know XYZ characters and why there's feuds between XYZ people, like how Jax lost his arm in the trailer. So, you know, there's different ways that they approach it, but you can build the world without kind of what Dan was saying, spending 50 minutes doing that. Especially if you have if you're planning for this to be a franchise, you can establish it in this one, keep it simple, and then let's like, when we now know all the characters and we care about these characters, let's then deep dive into the lore a little bit further. But what I got from this trailer, I mean, I ate it up like a spoon. Also, like, you know, having just rewatched Warrior both seasons on HBO Max and seeing, you know, we know that Joe Taslim is playing Sub-Zero. I was all for it. Hearing Scorpion's line, "Get over here," made me really, really excited. So, like, I am definitely the target audience for this trailer. And I know it's going to be available on HBO Max, but a part of me is kind of like, man, I'd like IMAX this in a heartbeat.
I think you're right, Wendy. I think that the approach to go is, you know, I know that there are a lot of fans that know the lore, etc. If you're looking to grow the fan base, which I think should be the goal of anything, and people have done it successfully in the past, Make a movie that sells the characters. Make a movie that gets people on board with these. You know who to root for. You don't have to establish who to root for. Get everyone established in the first movie. And if you want to go on and make a second movie, that's where you have the audience goodwill. If it's a success, and if you're making a second movie, it probably is. You have the audience goodwill, and then you can start taking these established characters and building a larger world. And I think that too often the problem with a movie is it tries to do both in the same film, and people kind of get lost in the shuffle a little bit. That was my biggest complaint with Alita Battle Angel, which was that I liked a lot of the characters that were in that movie, but I felt like they were pouring so much into the one movie, including setting up everything for the next one, that everything just sort of got lost in the shuffle for me. When I think if you had drilled down a little bit more, gotten a little more focused, you might have won over more people and then built the big world in the second movie once you have everybody on board.
Agree with that. Well, you guys, today's show has been such a fun discussion, just kind of diving into more of the Snyder Cut. It's kind of our thoughts on the new images, the promo images that have been released. Of course, WandaVision and 2 new trailers. Dan, thank you so much for taking the time joining us. It's been great talking nerdy stuff with you.
My pleasure. I love talking nerdy stuff.
Yeah,
I love it. Where can everybody find you? On social, on your YouTube?
Twitter at Murrell Dan. You can find my YouTube channel at youtube.com/Dan Murrell Movies. My box office show will be out later today. We're going to be talking about why a lot more studios are not reporting their box office numbers, because we found that with Fox Searchlight this weekend. They didn't report Nomadland. A24 didn't report Minari. So we're going to talk about that newest trend. And you can also find me. I have a Patreon if you want to check out what else I'm doing at patreon.com/Dan Murrell.
Well, I'm interested. Jami, where can everybody find you?
Oh, you can check me out on Instagram and Twitter at Philbrick, and Jami Philbrick on Facebook.
And for me, just my name on Twitter and Instagram, Wendy Lee Szany. And of course, thank you guys all for watching the show. Be sure to follow HCA Critics all over social media. That's the same for Twitter and Instagram for more updates. And of course, if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel. We have a whole bunch of new shows that debuted this year. We'd love for you to check them out. It's I think like Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and of course Monday, this show at 11 a.m. So hit that notification bell if you haven't already so you can be notified of all the new shows. Until then, stay nerdy. We will talk to you soon.
Yay!
Yay!